Hello everybody and welcome to Forever Rugby on Fair Sports for today's 5 things learned from the preparation series, a collection of takeaways basically based on the last sort of just a month and a bit of rugby we've seen in South Africa, which is the first bit of rugby we saw since the Currie Cup and Super Rugby, and the last bit of rugby we will see before the Pro 14 Rainbow Cup, which is scheduled to kick off on the 24th of April. It looks like the SA teams will be based in Bristol, is the latest sort of news. And big talk about Bulls potentially facing Leicester, although no fixtures have been officially confirmed as of yet. But it will be really cool to go overseas and start playing rugby against some of the best sort of Irish sides, and playing against teams that'll have players who will be part of the Lions setup. So it'll be a nice exposure for these players to sort of play against those sort of teams. The nice thing with the Lions tour obviously coming to South Africa is it means that the likes of the Stormers, Sharks, Bulls, SAA, Invitational will all also get an opportunity to play against the British and Irish Lions, which probably wouldn't have been the case had the tour gone ahead in the UK. But in terms of the takeaways, we've got 5 things we want to look at, which I think are quite interesting. So without any further ado, let's go and check out number 1. So a big problem that the Stormers have been having in the last sort of, 6 months is that Damian Willemse has been struggling at fly half despite being such an incredible talent. And with the injury to Warwick Lunt, we saw Damian Willemse shift back to the fullback, and particularly in the preparation series, we've seen the best of Damian Willemse, and it is quite clear that when you take the shackles off that come with playing at fly half, he becomes a whole different type of player, and it's a much, much better player. And so, for the Stormers to really thrive, I think they need to try and find somebody to play in that fly half position. And this weekend, Abner van Renen gave a fantastic audition for what he can do in the fly half position. And, it's quite difficult, but at the same time, much easier looking at Damian Willemse at full back, given the long-term injury to Warwick Lunt. When he returns, everything gets a little bit more complicated. But I thought that Abner van Renen really did sort of say, well, you know what, I can play at this level. Something I think Kate Voliter has shown glimpses of doing, but not been doing consistently. And I don't think you can back Kate Voliter long-term just yet because he is just so young. He hasn't had enough experience. We need him to go play some Varsity Cup or, play some Currie Cup First Division or under 21s or whatever. He needs to get that experience. He hasn't played at this level enough. And have enough exposure to this level to really sort of be able to be back full time. I think in a year or two's time, sure. But Abner van Renen definitely did look like someone who the Stormers could trust to maybe play like that, which would allow, most importantly, Damian Willemse to then to thrive at full back and not have to worry too much about playing at fly half. So a really poor game for this weekend from the Lions, and look, I think a lot of Lions are freaking out about it, and I'm not going to go over the top because I think it is a preparation series, it is a preseason game, there are a couple of changes and new combos and stuff like that. But I do think something we've been saying for quite a while, that while the Lions' best 15 is still a reasonably good side, depth is an ever-growing issue in that union. And I think particularly loosehead prop, for example, is a major issue. Having let go of Dylan Smith, Steve Story is now injured, which means you've got Ruan Dre as your starting loosehead. It's not an ideal situation. I also think, in positions like lock, you've got Ryan Northknuckle, coming in there, but they haven't really replaced Marvin Orie. In the last sort of year, Tyron Green's left, Malcolm Marks has left, Marvin Orie has left, Dylan Smith has left, and they've never really replaced these players. If Alta Yankees was to get injured tomorrow, you've got Tian Swanepoel coming in, who's not bad, he's a decent replacement, but it's not quite the same. And, that's why suddenly Fred Zailinger's on trial, but, it's just, you look at the depth, the quality, and more importantly, the quality and the depth of something like the Bulls, where you've got, Chris Smith coming off the bench. You've got, people like Nizam Carr, Timo Garber, Sintu Manjesi. These are players who probably might not even start for the Bulls. And, I think that they'll probably, do quite well for other unions. There's just so much depth at some of the other unions. You look at the Sharks as well. There's really, really good depth at these unions. And I think that's probably going to be the biggest weakness for the Lions. Thankfully, it's a 6-week tournament, the Rainbow Cup, so it's not particularly long. But ahead of a very long tournament at the end of the year, where you might not have Springboks for certain select games, Lions need to bring in players. They need to improve their depth because they just don't have enough players of high quality to be able to compete at this level. Now, I understand that the Sharks were playing against a very young Bulls side, but I just thought that the quality they showed on Friday night was sublime. And, there's the old phrase, you play as well as you're allowed to play. But I thought the handling and the way they constructed their attack looked very much like the Sharks that we saw in the Super Rugby last year. In such wet conditions, some of that handling was absolutely phenomenal. Some of the tries being scored, that Siaklinci try was brilliant by Spoon Corsi. It looked like a Sharks side that were playing with a lot more confidence, with a lot more freedom, and that was kind of the Sharks you want to see. They played really exciting rugby, they scored a lot of points, it was really cool to watch. And look, I mean, as I said, it's difficult to sort of be able to see, can they replicate that on the bigger stage? But that was definitely the biggest step in the right direction for me to getting back to their best and playing their best rugby. It was the best I've seen them play in a very, very long time. Regardless of the situation, I was very, very impressed. So the Bulls are obviously probably going to be walking to Rainbow Cup as one of the sort of the overriding favourites because they've just done a domestic double, and before this weekend hadn't lost in the preparation series either. But they are in the middle of an injury crisis and are missing a lot of players. And I think that whilst Friday, there are a lot of players that weren't involved that will be involved in the Rainbow Cup. If the Bulls suffer any more injuries, I think that the favourites tag kind of sort of goes away a little bit because I think that they do have phenomenal depth, but they do have about 10 injuries, and you can never really plan around sort of 10 injuries. And whilst I think that they'll still, once again, because they've got good depth, I think their starting lineup will still be good enough to compete. I do think over the course of the tournament, if they don't manage to get some of these players back, they might not be really favourites. I think they'll still do quite well. I'm still backing them to win sort of 3-4 games at least. But whether they'll be able to make it to that final and be able to get all the way unless they get a really good boost of injuries, will be telling. There was a story about that they're trying to get Francois Steyn on loan at inside centre, but the Cheetahs are saying no. But Steban Gans been ruled out, Albert Lowe, Honor Buerta, Dwayne Vermeulen, Marcel Couture. Are these players going to be fit? Sinterman Jay-Z is not fit. Trevor Nyakane, Lisa Oboka have always had their injury issues. So it's a very, very good squad and it's a very good side. But I think with the injuries at the moment, if they don't manage to get everybody fit before the Rainbow Cup, they might not necessarily be going into the tournament as favourites. If they can get half the players back, though, I think they walk into that tournament, and I think they're saying, right, Leinster, Munster, and the Sharks are probably going to be your sort of most likely winners, really. And the Bulls have deserved this sort of tag. I think the Sharks on Friday suddenly said, we can also do it. The Stormers, to a lesser degree, also made a bit of a statement, but I think the Stormers have been so inconsistent for such a long time, it'll take a lot more than one performance to prove that they are back and playing at the highest level. So whilst we gear ourselves up towards the Rainbow Cup, one thing that is blatantly obvious is the fact that there seems to be no plan as of yet for our second division sides, our Griquas, Pumas, EP Elephants, Cheetahs, and that needs to be rectified very, very soon, because if these teams are to improve and to become competitive, they have to play. The quality that we've seen in the Griquas, Pumas, in particular from the beginning of the season back in September to now is chalk and cheese, because as you start playing, the more you play as a team, the fitter you get when you play in rugby, it just improves so much. And at this stage, we need to sort out a long-term sort of second division tournament. If we're going to have 4 sides in the Rainbow Cup, or the Pro 16, where are the rest of our teams playing? How do we make sure that's a high standard of rugby? How do we make sure they're playing throughout the year? Because they can't just be playing Currie Cup. They've got to be playing something in preparation to the Currie Cup, so that when you bring the other sides into what is going to be the Currie Cup, they are ready. So whether it's a case of you sort of move the Currie Cup to maybe to a line after the Pro 16, and you then say, right, well then during the Pro 16 we have this sort of second division tournament, whatever the story is going to be, there needs to be a plan. It needs to be made very quickly, because these sides cannot afford to go into limbo once again for months at a time, because you just can't improve. How is the EP Elephants ever going to improve if they're not playing rugby? And if the only rugby they are playing is sort of club level, it's not good enough. You've got to sort out a second division tournament. So those are the main takeaways that I've taken from the last sort of couple of weeks. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Do smash like on the video. Do subscribe to the channel. My name is Steven. Thank you very much for watching, and I will chat to you soon.